Thanks, Evan.
Which actually works.
Patty's going, that worked.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
While we enjoy these warm and sunny days, we know that colder and snowier weather is coming. And while many of us can count on warm homes and healthy meals to sustain us, keep us ever mindful of our neighbors near and far who will struggle with less comfort and secure lodgings, as well as food scarcities. May we each seek ways to care for those who are hungry, homeless, and those who are dealing with illness and loneliness. May each of us be mindful of the least of our brothers and sisters and neighbors. Amen.
Amen.
Mackenzie, since you're the first person I saw, would you lead us in the four-way test?
The four-way test are the things we think, say, or do. First.
Is it the truth?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
You may be seated. Well, I know we have at least one guest, but I'm going to hold off on the introduction and ask Keith to cover that. Any birthdays, anniversaries, other significant milestones that are worthy of our attention? Or, well, yeah, we'll go there too. Okay, must have been an uneventful week in history then. Sorry, what?
It's birthday,
Oh, who's?
mine.
Oh.
We can celebrate both this weekend next week.
So join me, fellow Rotarians, in the Casey Jones Memorial.
Happy birthday to every girl and boy. Oh, this very special day brings you lots of joy. Hope the birthday presents you get from mom and dad will make this very special day the best you've ever had.
And who's our birthday calendar day?
Like
It's
this one.
Leanne.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I don't know if I noticed it before, but why is it a memorial when she's still celebrating birthdays? I mean, for something to be a memorial, you have to be gone.
It's historical.
It's a
It's
memorial
historical.
to Casey Jones.
Okay, well, maybe historical might be. Okay. Happy Find. I'll bring this to you, Diane. When you were growing up and in your childhood, were there stories that you heard that still stick with you? And I'm talking about, fairy tales, Bible stories, Aesop's fables, folk stories, and so forth. Those stories that have just sort of stuck with you. And I mention it partially because mine is the European folk story, Stone Soup, which I'm also using as sort of the theme of this year's stewardship emphasis at the congregation I serve. Are you familiar with Stone Soup? Straight, okay, then I won't tell you that. But it's a wonderful story of, folks finding that they actually have more than they thought they had. And when teamed up together, you can do amazing things, make wonderful soup. So, Mary Kay.
No, I could think of is a story my grandfather said. It was kind of a thing that he tickled you at the same time. It's when pigs were swine and turkeys chewed tobacco and something else, and then it was nub nub nub. I can't remember it. I can never. But that's the one that sticks in just because it was silly and there was no, as far as I know, theme or anything to it.
He already stole mine, the stone soup.
I'm
is-
sorry.
You know what I shouldn't say, he shared it.
For me, my father as a farmer always said that he has only had an 8th grade education and that he was he was hobbled handicapped by that. But he had a saying above the door going into our living room, and it said, even a turtle wouldn't get anywhere if he didn't stick his neck out.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That is really
and that
good.
was all about taking a risk.
You know, the sage wisdom that comes from this room is just. Marcia.
Oh, gosh, I can't really think of any stories. I mean, just, do unto others as you want
Okay.
done to you, I guess. The golden rule.
Well, I was not into a ton of them, but just one particular comic book that I got every week, and it was called Little Lulu. I don't know if any of you ever remember, but it had fabulous characters in it, like Witch Hazel and Gloria, who was the good-looking blonde, and Little Lulu was kind of a, drab little girl, but she had so many fabulous qualities, and I would get every issue every week that came.
Did you keep them?
No.
Oh,
That would have been an investment.
I-
And then she'd be
you know what
throwing
they
them
say
out
about
from her
hindsight,
garage
right?
right now.
So my dad had a lot of sayings, and one of them was, did you know that everything around the pigs were in this pork?
Oh, my God.
Remember that part about all this combined wisdom?
Here we go.
We're Harlan.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess your question brings up memories of stories that I don't like to tell. And that's,
Okay.
I remember a story that used to be told to us by camp counselors when I went to overnight at a YMCA camp when I was a little kid. They used to tell us about a fella in Wisconsin who did not so good things because our camp was in Wisconsin. And then shortly after they got done with the story, somebody would run around and try to break in the windows.
Oh, that was.
And that kept us in the camp. in the
Eggy.
cabin
Those
that night.
stories.
Yeah, that kept us in the cabin that night. So.
Ah.
I don't really have one. Besides, like, at Christmas time, you always have the Christmas stories. And when we were little, we would go and we would wait for Santa to come on Christmas Eve. And there was like 20 of us kids. And somehow we would hear Christmas bells and we'd all go running outside and there'd be a pile of presents, one present for each kid.
Oh, outside.
Yeah, outside
Oh,
somehow. And we were all looking out the windows. So no idea,
wow.
no idea. And I haven't asked to this day.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Uh-huh.
Well, for me, we had the most unique, it was like a poster, a large poster in our kitchen, and it was titled The Land of Make-Believe. And there were every story you could imagine, that you were describing. There was a character from the story in that Land of Make-Believe. And so we grew up, hearing these stories at the dinner table frequently. So it was just a wonderful way to kind of bring it all together.
Want to throw one in there, Tim?
I think I'll do the best.
Okay, okay. Very good.
How about our
Oh, yes.
Susan, Quinn,
Susan, Quinn, Patty?
Simon?
Sure, I'll tell
So,
you a story. Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, I don't remember many stories from when I was little, but now that my dad is 89, I have him tell stories every opportunity I have. And I'm sure he told us some of them when we were younger, but I'm still learning.
Patty, are you recording those stories?
No, not recording it, but we are putting together a family history book with pictures and names and all of that. I should be recording some of the stories. I had him fill out one of those little when I was young books with a question for every day for a year. So I've got some of them there. But you're right, I should be recording what he's telling me now.
We had recorded stories from both of my parents, and it's just a delight to hear their voices.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Simon?
All right, Bob, I still record stories occasionally with my parents because of your advice to do that, by the way.
Cool.
All right, here's a story I tell my kids. If it's not yours, don't touch it.
Oh, there you go.
Quinn?
I don't remember any specific story other than like a general theme of working hard, like you have to get out there and do the work.
Susan, are you there?
She might be at the front counter.
Okay, very good. Well, once again, Venmo your dollar in. Foundation minute, Diane.
Yes. We have one of my favorite minutes of all. We have a presentation to make. And I'm very glad that she is on Zoom today because Quinn, you have your Paul Harris +4
Wow.
today. So congratulations.
Oh,
I will make sure that this gets to you. I'm so proud of you and thank you all for your contributions to the foundation. Quinn does hers right online, so it's automatic. So that's really easy for her. And if that's something you're not doing and would like to, I can help you with that. So thank you again.
Very good.
you're here.
Anyone want to do a membership minute?
Patty,
Okay,
do you have,
I can share the one from Mark Lutgub this week. Basically, it's talking about the Learning Center, which is interesting because after last week's board meeting, I've pulled down a number of Learning Center modules and information, both on our responsibility roles in each of our positions in the club, but also for President's-elect training that will be coming up. So for membership, for anyone who's interested in helping expand membership of the club, there are several modules out in the Learning Center. There's one that's called Best Practices for Engaging Members. There's one for Is Your Club Healthy? One for Online Membership Leads, Strategies for Attracting New Members. Those are just a few of them. They're all about 15 minutes long. That's all it takes. And to sit through one of those courses or listen to it to get some ideas, you just log on to My Rotary on the Rotary International website, go to the Learning Center and search in there for membership and you'll pull up the list.
very good. Thank you. Announcements. Our fall highway cleanup is underway. Some of you have indicated that you were able to cover your section. Thank you for that. Once again, I do apologize. I had hoped to make these quarter-mile stretches, but we had to make them half-mile stretches, or, well, when you do both sides, a full mile. But Harlan, how's your hip?
You want to wrestle?
We got that story this Sunday.
Yeah. No. If it's this week, I don't think I can do it.
Okay, if someone would be so kind as to pick up Harlan's stretch, I'm sure you'd
I'm gonna
appreciate it.
try to get Keegan or something to pick my spot.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's see.
Patty's noting that she and Marcia finished their stretch in 2.5 hours yesterday.
1.5 hours.
1.5 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, Patty said 2.5. Oh,
Well,
okay.
the time spent at the Snarky Loon doesn't count.
You near the dark, was it?
That is
Well, it was
time.
really dark. Yeah,
Mhm.
but we finished at about 7.
And it
So-
did include.
Yeah, she's right. We started about 5:30 and finished about 7. But
Okay.
it was so dark, it felt like we'd been out there for hours.
By the end.
We'll tell you what, let's get going with our program.
Can I
Keith,
do
you want to
one?
do an introduction for us?
Can I do one quick?
Oh, sure.
Just that we just changed, well, we met on last week, the committee for RAT, and then we met with Dave Lucky yesterday. And we're going to try for July 28th, 29th instead of in August. It works better for many people. And then we're looking at Simon Rio and maybe Neil McCoy. That's the thing. And so we're going to try to go to our sponsors early and ask them to really get behind us as we kind of refocus a little bit and try to have a bigger thing to have a bigger draw.
Yeah, I'm still looking for Rotarian to put on a four-way test essay presentation for Strive.
Keith. Okay. 48 years ago, my wife and I were married at a little church in Pine River, right across the street from County Fair. And that little church is now a bigger church. It's a new building, not the one that we were married in. And with us this morning is Pastor Tim, who is the pastor there at New Life Church. And they share a vision as a congregation, which includes serving the poor, serving those in need. And so I've asked him to come and just share what they're doing there and possibly how we can be involved. So, Tim.
Thank you. Well, good morning. It is good to be here. As you can tell, I'm wearing logo wear from another hat that I also possess. Several people asked me early on, of course, when was the fire? And of course, we had a fire there at the church back in May of 2018. And a great friend and mentor of mine visited, was in the area. He actually called the congregation together the next day and says, okay, you get a chance to do it again. You can do a do-over. And to imagine any of us at some point in life saying, okay, if I could do it over, how would I do it differently? And he asked, what's important? I said, well, really, we love community. We love, he says, well, then how come nobody can find the fellowship hall? And we also love working with kids. He says, well, then why is it buried so deeply? In fact, it was that original sanctuary that Keith and his wife were married in. And so we had this opportunity to lay a brand new piece of concrete down and also establish a new vision and a new identity. And so out of that, we began to look and ask, what are the true, well, honestly, why should we even be here? Anyone who's from the area knows you can drive down any street in a small town and you'll find a church. And so literally I challenged the congregation. I said, give us a reason to reinvest these funds in this building and not somewhere down the street. And again, we also have our tribal loyalties, and that creates a little bit of a schism there. But the reality was we needed to be purposeful. And our first goal for that was, then let's look elsewhere. Let's look outward. Let's not build the building for us. Let's build the building for others. And we identified two community organizations that had caught our attention. One of those was out of the Brainerd area. I believe it might have been Bridges of Hope or New Pathways, something of that, but they linked with what was called an interfaith hospitality network. And the idea was that faith communities would house up to 5 families for a 7-day continuous. And so one of the first things we established was, if we're going to build a building, we need to be able to establish emergency shelter for up to 5 families, they would each have a private space, which means, well, you should have a bathroom. And as long as we're building a bathroom, let's put a handicap shower in. So we made everything handicap accessible. We provided that. We have a washer and dryer, which makes it mighty nice when it's time to clean the linens from some type of an activity, rather than sending them home to the pastor's wife, which is probably in most of our church bylaws. But the other piece was this thing called Ruby's Pantry. Now, we had an individual in Pine River who had no direct affiliation with our church, but she made a presentation to the ministerial meeting years earlier and said, we need to engage in this. And for those that are not aware, Lynn Sarr used to take mission trips to Mexico. And so he would go around and solicit gifts to give to the children in Mexico. And typically they were toys and clothing and such. And one day, one of those sponsors that he would typically solicit said, well, could we send some food? Because what they identified is that many corporations overproduce. Again, it's a competitive market. And so, whereas we're all aware of Second Harvest, Ruby's Pantry actually originated out of going to corporate sponsors and giving out of their excess. And as you all know, pretty much anything in the store, once it gets there too long, it's outdated. And of course, if it's not made it to the store shelf by then, they have to distribute it elsewhere. And oftentimes it simply goes into the waste stream. And so that's how the story began. Ruby is actually the name of Lynn's grandmother. And he grew up in a home she was very hospitable, very generous. And so out of that, they envisioned this Ruby's Pantry concept. And so essentially, their goal is to activate people to give back. And obviously, like we have so many organizations, just like here today, I see likely a diverse representation that the Rotary Club happens to be something that brings you together. And we found the same thing in our Ruby's Pantry. In fact, I grew up in a very conservative church home where the average churchgoers went on Sunday morning. And if you were a little more committed, you might come back for a Sunday evening service. And if you were really diehard, there was this Wednesday activity as well. And that's how you kind of knew how committed someone was. Well, I now pastor 3 churches that all reside in the same building. One of those is our Sunday crowd. A second one is our Wednesday crowd. We have families that come on Wednesday night who don't prioritize Sunday morning. It just messes with my brain that works. But that third congregation and the most diverse congregation is our Ruby's Pantry group. So we have individuals who come simply because they want to give back to the community. We have some that come from other congregations, and it's not a competition. So they realize that's my home, faith home. This is where I have the opportunity to serve once a month. So Ruby's has over 80 locations, and just checking on their website, they've so far, and I'm not sure if this is annually or total, they list 26.5 million pounds of food. And so one of the unfortunate deficiencies that we missed as we were constructing our building is we found out we needed a forklift. And we hadn't really planned an access door for a forklift. So we have a customized forklift that will fit through a standard residential door. And we that's one of the requirements. You have to be able to unload a traditional semi because they do not come with the lift tailgate. But they have currently they have 82, and they list 82 locations nationally. Honestly, it's the Midwest, and they have begun expanding. The product we receive comes from the Alexandria area. I think it's Elbow Lake is the warehouse. There's something in eastern Minnesota and then Wisconsin, and that's the primary. I think they might be crossing that international border and slipping into Iowa once in a while, but I'm not certain about that. But essentially, it's almost like going to a potluck or smorgasbord, because every month you don't know what's coming until the night before. And last month they sent a large gaillard of potatoes, and these are raw potatoes, and so then they might be bagged, they may not. So your volunteers come usually about 2 hours early, and they will repackage. Now you can't break down something again. We can't possibly damage or risk food safety, and so potatoes, they let you repackage those. They might be a big gaillard of miscellaneous pop products, and so you'll break those into shares. But sometimes you'll get a 25-pound box of hamburger. Excuse me, we had large like quarters of the beef one time. They were worth like $200 a piece. Sometimes it's pizza. There's almost always potatoes. But what we have is we have this diverse group that they come together, and it's just utter mayhem for about 2 hours as they come into our small gymnasium space, and they redistribute and they create individual shares. Now, there's been a major price increase in the last year. It used to be $20 a share. It's now $25. And for that $25, you're guaranteed at least $100, if not $200 worth of food products every month. And so we have, when we first began, some other community organizations really worked with us. The Bacchus Legion bought all the shares on 2 different months. In one case, they bought 400 shares, and in that case, 400 times 20, you can do the math. So we had substantial gift. Unfortunately, then what happens, everybody got this idea that, oh, it's free. No, it is actually $20 now, $25. But we have over 100 volunteers that help. A typical month, there'll be about 30 present. One of the unique things is, again, Ruby's Pantry always functions out of a faith community. It's not limited to a specific denomination, but they are faith-based, and so they seek to partner with faith communities. And so right now, I know there's a large distribution that happens in the Baxter area. Ours is a little bit smaller. I believe the last few months, we've had generally about, I think it's been about 130 to 150 shares of produce that have gone. Anything that's excess, then we look for other partners to work with. And so we've traditionally worked with the Community Meals Program out of Pine River. We've also, last month, we gave a large amount back to the food shelf, which they, again, glad to distribute that other days of the week. some of the group homes in the Pine River area as well. And so it's been just a really good opportunity to be, if you will, a clearinghouse for opportunity and for service. So it's been an honor to be a part of that. There are things that go on behind the scenes. And so my wife and I take those primary leadership roles that way, because there does need to be one organization that takes leadership. But as you all know, there's a shortage of people interested in volunteering. So I would challenge you, just as you're working here, if there's an opportunity that you might have that want to give back, or others that might ask. And one thing I have found, I think people are more committed to vision than they are to building. And in many cases, people are desiring to give back and be engaged in some type of ministry or service. And in case you aren't aware, biblically, those two words are interchangeable, service and ministry. And when we do that out of our faith foundation, it is in fact one and the same. Now, I found this interesting, realized there's a clock and there's a time frame. I could go on for hours here, but questions, or how best can we wrap this up?
Let's do questions.
Okay.
Yeah, Tim, we all know of single father, single mother, people that are in need. And sometimes they don't feel, well, they're kind of a stigma of going to the, and I found that we can break that down by us making the purchase and taking it individually to someone in need.
So first of all, let me clarify, there are no criteria whatsoever. We do give out usually about a half a dozen free shares each month. And that's first come, first serve for people who are truly in need. We've never turned anyone away because they could not contribute that small donation. We have had individuals, and this might be something that anyone here could do. We've had individual come and purchase 6 shares simply to pick them up because the person who needed them couldn't get there. Right. So there's the opportunity to simply be that transportation hub. We've also found many who they will come and they will purchase a share, because honestly, my wife and I rarely purchase a share, because it's literally just more food than we can use up in a month. Honestly, the last share we bought had 92 hard-boiled eggs. It was a tub of them. Can you imagine trying to consume? Yeah, and typically the packaging are those types that you would find in an institutional setting, like maybe it's a 5-pound container of mashed potatoes that are frozen. So being able to be that bridge, removing that stigma, and also in some cases breaking it into a more palatable size to distribute to friends. Yes, Bob.
When you mentioned such a large quantity, have you ever donated any excess to the Riverside Food, what do they call it, the soup kitchen?
Riverview, you guys, I think it's not Riverside. I think because
Community meal.
yeah, the community meal. I think it's Riverview.
And I believe there
It is.
It's very confusing.
and again,
I
the
would
name
know.
escapes me, but the individual who owns the
Bakery.
bakery
Yeah.
on our list, he's on speed dial.
I bet he is.
Okay.
So many times things have gone that way.
I could picture the large meat would be a great thing for.
That was a hot commodity that month. They were frozen, but it was hot commodity.
Okay.
Other questions?
It's interesting because of a grant that we got from United Way, we have to do volunteer hours for Second Harvest. And so I had the opportunity to go to Brainerd and do the Second Harvest, which operates, except you don't pay. You have a large number, and there I think, same thing. They have a whole bunch of frozen pizzas, so each family might get 2 pizzas. And if it's, if they got more yet, then they give the word along the line, 3 pizzas, but they go on. And then I also participated up at the Nazarene up at Baxter, or not Baxter, Bacchus. But the one thing that dismayed me a little bit was, and you have kind of the same thing, you got this lineup of cars, and these cars come through and they get these things, and over half the cars were much newer and much nicer than I own, and there is no test for Second Harvest that I know. and obviously the test for rubies is $25. But you know, with Second Harvest and rubies and the food pantry, you know, there's some real resources in this community to help with food. You know, there should not be a reason for anybody to go hungry.
Now, I can't say that I've verified this, but I know when we first began this, they advised us that typically the day of your distribution will be one of the best days at the local grocery store. Because once people come and find out what they have, now that allows the rest of their finances to fill those gaps. And so now they can run right on over to the grocery store and meet, you know, fill the voids.
Can I buy a share and I don't want hard-boiled eggs? Can I leave them there, or they have to go with it?
What we've typically done is if the item is prepackaged and large enough, we'll actually position it right at the street and we'll give that opportunity. Would you like this? Would you like an extra?
Okay.
In many of the cases, those items are pre-arranged in boxes, and in that case, it's pretty difficult to weed that out. It's not been uncommon for us to find some of those items sitting in a box in front of the church the next day. In fact, one of the main things we had extra of this last month was 12 packs of Mountain Dew, flaming hot.
Oh my God.
I don't know why, but hot stuff seems to be popular, and I'm guessing that's because it's not as popular in the local store.
So what is the average membership per month that you have with your,
As far as
the number of,
volunteers?
no, the number of people that have bought your $25 subscription or whatever it's gonna be?
Well, again, it's on a monthly basis, and at this point, some locations pre-register or allow people to pre-purchase. We've not chosen to do that. So we simply have, again, because of location, we have the fairgrounds next door. People queue in the fairgrounds, they pay their 25 or get a voucher, and then they receive a numbered ticket. The purpose of the numbered ticket for us is as we're distributing, we're starting to get an idea, oh, I'm at 105 or I'm at 130. The largest distribution we've had has been 400 shares. I don't believe we ever utilized all of those shares, but we came close. We definitely got on a first name basis with the local police department because of the traffic congestion. That's why we went to the fairgrounds. Of late, we've run anywhere from about 130 to 180 shares per month. We were expecting, as inflation began to soar, that would increase. It has not, at least for us. And I don't know if it's the stigma. I don't know if it's the time of day. Honestly, I would guess at least 50% of the participants are retired. They've got the flexibility. They're looking to make their income stretch. So we have obviously a lot of friends that we see every month. And again, it is amazing just how much food they expect you to be able to fit in a vehicle. You know, someone will come and their vehicle's already got every seat filled and the trunk is half full, and they say, I want 3 shares. He wants to strap them on the top. Yes.
So they don't pre-register, it's first come, first served.
Correct. And so there'll be people lining up by 12:30, 1 o'clock. The semi generally arrives about 12:15 to 12:30. We remove the product, determine what stays outside, what goes inside. We have a nice meal that's prepared for us each month. And of course, there's a lot of camaraderie, just as you have so much of that, even though you have a common vision in your club, there's a camaraderie and a friendship that develops. And so it's been neat to see those friendships build. We offer to pray for people and have them turn in prayer requests as well. We often pray for different volunteers that have specific needs as well. So it's, again, it just builds one more layer of community that's really vital.
Do you see a seasonal fluctuation lower in the summer or larger in the fall or winter?
We definitely saw a hiccup. Ours is always the 4th Tuesday, not the last Tuesday, but the 4th Tuesday of the month. And we have people that miss that occasion because, again, every 3 months there's 5 Tuesdays. When Tuesday hit 2 days before Thanksgiving and when it landed very close to Christmas, that got a little bit less. Spring break last year was a real drop off. We were expecting some commonality. For some reason, people just didn't come out that day because I guess I don't really think that many families in that criteria are leaving town for those few days.
So the food that comes to you that doesn't get distributed goes loaded to a next location?
Actually, the semi unloads and disappears.
So you have,
It's ours to deal with. And so each month, a few weeks prior, or a couple weeks prior, my wife makes a guesstimate. Okay, we ran long last month, we'll meter it back a little bit, or we ran short, we'll ramp it up just a hair. But again, that's where we have all these other organizations on speed dial. And because our goal is to distribute all the food that day. Right now, we're still got plenty of Mountain Dew Flaming Hot. So if you just call, I can set you up.
well, it keeps well.
And there are some items like that, because they keep well, we distribute them the next month. One of my personal favorite was jalapeno relish. It was
Oh, that's probably good.
It was sweet, and boy, it come right after you.
With some cream cheese, it's a good deal.
I remember one time you got quite a load of buttermilk, wasn't it?
We've had buttermilk early on. We started in June of 2020, so it was the COVID crush, and every month we would get just cases and cases of the milk cartons that you would have in the school system, because the schools were shut down and all that milk had been produced and needed at home. Never had so much chocolate milk in my life.
You had a buckshot probiotic. A little,
Yeah.
ooh, that was hard on the gut.
Gut shot.
Ooh,
I honestly, and it didn't go very well that month. And so I had it literally loaded up, ready to take it to the landfill. And somebody said, do you know how valuable that is? And so we pulled it back in and we filled up our refrigerator, and literally within a couple of weeks, all I had to do is throw it on Facebook. Hey, we got some of this gut shot. Terrible marketing plan, but yeah, oh yeah, I use that. You bet, I'll come and get some. And
So you mentioned distribution is on the fourth Tuesday from 3 to 5?
Our goal is to be there from 3 to 5 generally. Depending on the scenario, oftentimes by 2:30 or so, we're ready to start distributing. And so as soon as we are ready and there are people queued, we will start moving.
Volunteers show up at noon?
Usually by 1 o'clock.
By 1.
There is a registration process. And again, you would just Google Ruby's Pantry. And I believe the website's called Ruby's Heart. And they do some type of very minimal background check, and they register you as a volunteer. There are volunteers that what we have found is many early retirees who've come to the area are looking for an opportunity. And oftentimes, because of the notoriety of Ruby's Pantry, they will come and they'll serve with us as well. So we've been making new friends that way as well.
So the $25 for the share actually goes back to Ruby's Pantry?
Great question. It's a 90-10. So they leave 10% with us. So out of that 25, we get $250. They receive the other $22.50. Ironically, and again, this happened because of COVID, any share, we pay for the shares we distribute. And so if we have 150 shares and only 130 are distributed, we pay 90% of the 130, and the 20 become free, and they get distributed then to all these other organizations. And it's no burden to us, because obviously that would be funds that we hadn't received. My understanding is Ruby's Heart or Ruby's Pantry, about half of their funding stream is direct donation, and half is the share, the pricing back to the shares. But all of their food is donated free of charge by corporations. So their expenses are clearly administrative and trucking, of which you can imagine that's substantial.
Is stuff dated, like the gallon of hard-boiled eggs? I can't imagine.
Generally, they are near or just beyond their expiration date.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Shelf life.
Yeah, the shelf life. Well, I know, and that's such an interesting discussion in our world right now, but
Exactly.
who knows what that all means. We didn't used to have it and nobody died. That's what I always tell my kids.
We did have one experience where we gave out whole chickens, and some of those apparently had spoiled.
Oh, dear.
And again, all they had to do was notify us, and we were able to replace that with something different, or they got a free share the next month. So again, they understand, they try and monitor that within their warehouse process, but sometimes those things do happen.
So you do have a way of, if you had a defective product, of contacting those people who would have gotten it.
Yeah, and in this case, they had to reach back to us because we weren't sure, because,
Okay.
some were spoiled, most were not. But, yeah, it's been interesting just again to create that avenue of service in the community. All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, Bruce, you're on deck next week for
Yes.
program.
Yes, next
The-
week, we're gonna hear from a small organization over east of Cross Lake called Smile Again Ministries. It's a
Okay.
Very unique, very interesting service that's offered throughout a wide area, not just for people.
We have an opening on the 25th. Rick is on the November 1st. Steve Hansen, the 18th, and then Bob is on for the 15th. If you guys want, if you need to.
Not the
Steve is on the 8th. Yeah, you are on the
election
8th.
day.
Yes,
Yeah, I got all sorts of politicians lined up.
Good.
which I'm gonna, by the way, can you cover for me that on that day?
Are you an election judge?
I'm an election judge.
I'm surprised we have a
Aren't you?
meeting on the.
Huh?
election.
What aren't you, Steve?
There's still a long list, trust me.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that covers everything. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Sounds like a great ministry.